Tonight, we're revisiting 10 titles that defined the visceral, low-budget grit of the 70s drive-in. These are the films that lived on the fringes of the law, fueled by raw ambition, jagged editing, and a total disregard for good taste. This was the era of the grindhouse and the exploitation circuit, a lawless corner of cinema where the goal wasn't just to entertain, but to shock, offend, and leave an audience feeling genuinely unsafe. From the nihilistic ruins of the urban underground to the bizarre sun-bleached nightmares of rural America, these stories represent a genre at its most unmasked and predatory. They are messy, transgressive, and deeply atmospheric relics of a time when the screen seemed to bleed. Turn your headlights off and lock your doors as we look at 10 titles from 70s exploitation horror.
The Redeemer, Son of Satan, 1978, kicks off in eerie silence. Then an unexpected choir boy emerges from a lake as if summoned. Suddenly, 6 former classmates receive golden invitations back to their alma mater. Does it feel celebratory? Not for long. Once they arrive, the tone flips. The host is a man in a mask and robes, right out of a religious fever dream, lecturing them in sermons dripping with venom, preaching redemption for sins they haven't even remembered committing. Before they can catch their breath, he's picked them off one by one. Trapped in the corridors, hunted inside their own high school, these alumni become targets of chilling judgment. What sets this film apart is its strange soul. The killer isn't your shadowy slasher in a patterned mask. He's a preacher, and he switches costumes mid-kill. Janitor, inspector, clown. He reappears to deliver homilies before each murder. The film looks and feels like it was shot in a time capsule. A low-budget theater-turned-horror stage, grainy yearbook photos, and distorted hymns echoing through dusty hallways. The visual layers crackle with chaos, molded face masks, a crazy puppet in a school auditorium, and a preacher whose two-thumbed hand fades back into normality after the carnage. It's bizarre, disorienting, and beautifully unhinged. Even with its flaws, ragged pacing, absurd plotting, and cringe-inducing theology, The Redeemer endures because it leans hard into its own bizarre logic. It doesn't try to justify its stranger elements. It revels in them. It's the kind of film you'd discover at the bottom of the VHS rental bin, expect nothing, and end up haunted by its morbid confidence. It doesn't just kill, it punishes, with twisted faith, theatrical flair, and a disturbing kind of poetic justice that lingers long after the tape ejects. The Town That Dreaded Sundown, 1976. A peaceful border town on the Texas-Arkansas line is thrown into a state of absolute panic when a faceless serial killer begins targeting young couples on lonely lovers' lanes. Dubbed the Phantom Killer, the maniac eludes the local police force by wearing a crude burlap sack mask with cutout eye holes as he executes his victims with brutal precision. Based on the real-life Texarkana moonlight murders of 1946, the story tracks the desperate, frustrating manhunt led by top Texas Rangers as the entire community imposes a strict dusk-to-dawn curfew. Director Charles B. Pierce pioneered the modern true crime horror aesthetic here, utilizing a cold, omniscient narrator to guide the viewer through the factual timeline of the crimes. This pseudo-documentary framing is balanced by highly intense, uncompromised stalking sequences that heavily influenced the slasher boom of the following decade. Pierce masterfully captures the stark contrast between the warm, mundane daytime routines of the townspeople and the pitch-black, terrifying vulnerability of the country roads at night. The camera work stays uncomfortably close to the physical mechanics of the crimes, emphasizing real-world terror over Hollywood flash. Ben Johnson anchors the historical investigation with authority as the weathered, determined lead, Ranger Captain J.D. Morales. The film features incredibly stark practical effects and highly memorable set pieces, including an infamous attack involving a pocket knife attached to a trombone slide. It stands as a monumental piece of regional filmmaking that handles its historical basis with a raw, terrifying energy. For fans of early independent horror, this grim, atmospheric procedural remains a defining cornerstone of the true crime subgenre. Shriek of the Mutilated, 1974. An ambitious college professor recruits a small group of his top anthropology students for a dangerous weekend field trip. Their academic mission is to track down a legendary bloodthirsty creature rumored to be slaughtering anyone who crosses its path. However, the expedition takes a deeply sinister turn when the students are brutally picked off one by one, uncovering a massive, localized conspiracy that is far more calculated than a random monster attack. Director Michael Findlay infuses this bizarre, independent production with a distinct, dreamlike drive-in theater quality that keeps the audience constantly off balance. The camera work alternates between long, voyeuristic point-of-view tracking shots through the thick brush and frantic, handheld cuts during the sudden ambush sequences. Findlay relies heavily on a bizarrely mismatched, jarring musical soundtrack and eerie ambient silence to amplify the isolation of the island setting. The visual tone perfectly encapsulates the raw, unpolished spirit of 1970s exploitation cinema, prioritizing shock value and weird narrative swerves over traditional suspense. The young ensemble cast delivers delightfully animated performances, reacting to the mounting absurdity with an earnestness that makes the film incredibly memorable. Alan Brock commands the screen as the deeply suspicious, overbearing professor whose true motives drive the underlying mystery. The film is famous for its creative, shoestring-budget creature effects and highly unexpected pitch-black final twist that completely recontextualizes the entire monster hunt. For collectors of oddball regional cinema, it stands as a quintessential, delightfully trashy artifact of the vintage video era. Dead of Night, 1974. Bob Clark's Dead of Night, also known as Death Dream, reimagines The Monkey's Paw through Vietnam War trauma. Andy Brooks dies in combat, devastating his family. When he returns home days later claiming he's fine, his mother's joy blinds her to the truth. Her son came back wrong, requiring fresh blood to maintain his reanimation and growing increasingly violent as his body decays. Richard Backus plays Andy with haunting detachment, portraying a young man who's physically present but spiritually absent. He moves with stiff, mechanical precision, his 1,000-yard stare suggesting he's seen things that killed who he was even if his body still functions. Lynn Carlin delivers heartbreaking performance as the mother whose desperate need for her son's return makes her complicit in his crimes. John Marley plays the father who recognizes the truth his wife refuses to accept. Tom Savini's early makeup effects work shows Andy's gradual decomposition. The practical gore effects for Andy's victims are impressively brutal, particularly a nightmare-inducing syringe sequence. Clark shoots Andy's nocturnal hunts with genuine dread, emphasizing his predatory transformation. The film works as both horror and anti-war statement, treating Andy's condition as metaphor for PTSD and the impossibility of returning unchanged from combat. The family's attempts to maintain normalcy while their son literally rots become unbearably tragic. Clark refuses easy catharsis, understanding that some damage can't be healed. Dead of Night remains one of the most effective zombie films ever made, using supernatural premise to explore very real trauma. It's nasty, sad, and uncompromising, proof that exploitation cinema could deliver both visceral horror and genuine emotional devastation. The Evictors, 1979. A young optimistic couple moves into a charming historic farmhouse in a sleepy rural town in Louisiana, looking forward to a quiet, peaceful life together. Their idyllic dream quickly dissolves when they discover the local community is hiding a dark secret regarding a violent, bloody shootout that occurred on the property decades prior. As strange, threatening occurrences escalate around their property, the couple realizes that someone is fiercely determined to reclaim the house by any means necessary. B-movie auteur Charles B. Pierce brings his trademark documentarian eye to this slow-burn period piece, wrapping the entire narrative in a thick layer of historical authenticity. Utilizing high contrast, natural lighting, and wide sweeping shots of the desolate southern countryside, Pierce captures a palpable sense of small-town paranoia. The film's deliberate, steady editing pace builds tension through long stretches of quiet observation, rather than relying on rapid-fire violence. The visual framework masterfully handles the hidden threats lurking just beyond the edge of the property line. Vic Morrow leads the cast with a gruff, intensely menacing presence that immediately sets the local tone of hostility. Jessica Harper is equally stellar, anchoring the film's tension with a deeply expressive, vulnerable performance as the increasingly terrified housewife. The production excels at creating a gritty, tactile atmosphere of historical dread, culminating in a series of sudden, explosive home invasion sequences. It remains a highly atmospheric hidden gem of late 70s regional cinema that treats its simple premise with absolute seriousness. Don't Look in the Basement, 1973. Deep in rural Texas, a young nurse arrives at a remote asylum to start a new job, only to discover that the doctor is dead, the patients are running the place, and the line between sanity and madness no longer exists. Every room hides a new kind of danger, and every face seems to wear a mask of calm just waiting to crack. Released under other titles, including The Forgotten, this low-budget shocker from director S.F. Brownrigg became a staple of drive-in horror and late-night TV. Shot on a shoestring and drenched in southern sweat, it feels claustrophobic and unpredictable, where even silence carries a kind of menace. The amateur cast and raw camera work give it a strange authenticity. It doesn't feel performed so much as found. What it lacks in polish, it makes up for in atmosphere and sheer unease. The creaking floors, dim lighting, and chaotic editing make the entire asylum feel alive, pulsing with fear and confusion. Like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which came just a year later, Don't Look in the Basement proves that you don't need money to make something that gets under your skin. It's grim, sweaty, and deeply unsettling, a cracked mirror reflecting the madness of 1970s American horror. The Baby, 1973. When a young social worker is sent to check on a reclusive family, she finds a case unlike anything she's seen. A full-grown man kept in diapers and treated like a child by his domineering mother and two disturbed sisters. But as her concern turns to curiosity, she uncovers something far more disturbing than neglect. The Baby is one of the strangest and most unsettling films of the 1970s, a psychological horror story disguised as domestic melodrama. Directed by Ted Post, it starts with a tone of grim realism before slowly peeling back into madness. Anjanette Comer plays the social worker with quiet determination, while Ruth Roman dominates the screen as the controlling matriarch, walking a perfect line between camp and cruelty. The film's low-budget look and made-for-TV pacing make its descent into depravity all the more shocking. Every smile feels false, every conversation tinged with threat, and every brightly lit suburban room hides something rotting beneath the surface. By the time its final reveal arrives, The Baby has gone from strange to downright transgressive, a story about control, dependency, and how far people will go to keep their version of love intact. It's uncomfortable, unforgettable, and utterly one of a kind, a true relic of 70s horror that still feels wrong in all the right ways. The Toolbox Murders, 1978. Before home renovation shows made tools seem friendly, the Toolbox Murders took everyday hardware and turned them into instruments of terror. Set in a Los Angeles apartment complex, this infamous exploitation film follows a masked killer who turns a simple toolbox into something far more sinister. But what starts as a straightforward slasher takes an unexpected turn into psychological territory that no one saw coming. Shot on a shoestring budget of just $185,000, this film became notorious enough to be banned in several countries. Veteran character actor Cameron Mitchell leads a cast that includes former child star Pamela Ferdin and Land of the Lost's Wesley Ure, bringing unexpected gravitas to what could have been just another exploitation film. What sets Toolbox apart from other slashers of its era is how it shifts gears halfway through. Director Dennis Donnelly takes what seems like a standard stalk and slash formula and veers into darker psychological territory, exploring themes of grief and madness. The film's grimy 1970s Los Angeles locations add a layer of urban decay that makes the whole thing feel uncomfortably real. While its initial release might have been overshadowed by bigger horror titles of 1978, The Toolbox Murders has developed a cult following among genre fans who appreciate its ability to balance explicit horror with psychological dread. Tourist Trap, 1979. Tourist Trap is one of the great underappreciated horror films of the late 1970s. A strange, surreal blend of slasher terror, supernatural horror, and pure nightmare logic. Released in 1979, it feels like a dream you might have rented by accident. Familiar at first, but getting stranger with every scene until you can't quite believe what you're watching. The story follows a group of friends stranded on a lonely stretch of highway after their car breaks down. They stumble upon a rundown roadside attraction, a wax museum filled with eerie mannequins, and meet the friendly but unsettling owner, Mr. Slauson. From there, the film takes a hard turn into madness as the mannequins start to move on their own, and something unseen begins picking off the visitors one by one. Director David Schmoller, in his debut, brings a dreamlike atmosphere that sets Tourist Trap apart from other late 70s slashers. The sound design alone is enough to get under your skin. The creaking mannequins, the warped voices, and the haunting score by Pino Donaggio, who also worked on Carrie and Don't Look Now. Everything feels slightly off, like reality is bending just out of sight. What makes it special is how unpredictable it is. It shifts from creepy to tragic to downright bizarre, all while keeping a strange emotional core. Chuck Connors' performance as Slauson is both sympathetic and terrifying. A lonely man surrounded by his family of lifeless figures, drifting further into delusion. When Tourist Trap hit home video, it became a word-of-mouth favorite, the kind of movie people would stumble across late at night and never forget. It's eerie, imaginative, and way more artistic than its title suggests. Tourist Trap is pure nightmare fuel, a surreal roadside detour into the uncanny, where the mannequins never stop watching, and escape feels like another illusion. The Child, 1977. The Child is a slow-burning, unsettling horror that plays with the idea that innocence can hide something truly sinister. Directed by Robert Voskanian, the story follows Elysiane, a young woman who takes a job as a housekeeper at a remote farmhouse, tasked with looking after an 11-year-old girl named Rosalie. At first, Rosalie seems like any other child, quiet and polite, but it doesn't take long for Elysiane to notice something off. The girl's behavior is odd, her world filled with strange rituals and shadowy companions that don't quite seem human. As Elysiane digs deeper, she discovers that Rosalie's mother has recently died under mysterious circumstances, and that the child has a terrifying connection to the undead. The film thrives on atmosphere. The isolated farmhouse, the creaking floors, and the eerie sound design all contribute to a growing sense of unease. Even though the performances feel a bit uneven at times, the tension keeps you on edge, because you never quite know what Rosalie is capable of. As the story unfolds, Elysiane is drawn deeper into Rosalie's dark world. The child's supernatural influence becomes impossible to ignore, and the line between reality and horror blurs. The climax is intense, revealing just how malevolent Rosalie truly is, and cementing the film's eerie reputation. The Child may not be widely known, but it captures a distinctive 1970s low-budget horror vibe. Its combination of psychological tension and supernatural dread makes it a fascinating watch for fans of vintage horror looking for something offbeat and haunting. By the end, the film leaves you with that lingering feeling that even the most innocent faces can hide terrifying secrets, a darkness that stays with you long after the screen goes black.
Thanks for watching. If you have your own memories of these films or a hidden gem we missed, let us know in the comments below. We're building this collection together, one film at a time. And remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is somebody's favorite.